Hey guys, just wanted to bring you guys a quick video this week. It's going to be 5 tips and tricks on how to improve your skills when you're new to archery, specifically on a compound bow. If you haven't already done so, I did a video last week on how to sight in your bow for 20 yards on a multi-pin sight. If you haven't watched it, go ahead and check it out. I'll throw the link up in the corner up here. Check it out afterwards or before, whatever you want to do. But the first tip that I have is something that I didn't address in the previous video, and that is fatigue. When you're new to archery, when you're new to compound bows, traditional bows and everything, those movements your body is not used to. So you're going to be using muscles in a manner that they hadn't been used before. So they can get fatigued very easily. So my recommendation is, if you're making adjustments, if you're just going to, put some practice in, don't wear yourself out to where you start compromising your accuracy and your efficiency because you're fatigued and your arms and your shoulders aren't, able to hold you stable enough to, make an accurate shot. So for that, if you're to avoid getting fatigued easily early on, do short volleys of arrows, 3 to 5 arrows, send them down range, make some adjustments, bring the arrows back, take a quick, 1 or 2 minute break, shake it out a little bit, and then continue, and then just keep doing that after every volley of arrows. That brings me to my next point, something that I didn't cover in the previous video for sighting in your bow. So tip number 2 is going to be death grip. Don't grip your bow like you're going to squeeze the hell out of something and kill it and strangle it. So when you want to grip a bow, I have my bow here, you want to do, hold your arm straight out, do a 45-degree angle, and then put the bow on the meaty portion between your thumb and your index finger and just kind of let it sit there. As you guys can see, this thing is just pretty much balancing on its own. There's nothing, underneath it. It just kind of floats there. I make minor tweaks to my arm so my sight level, the bubble on my sight level is, steady and centered. So the reason you don't want to do that is you want as least resistance or impact on that bow as possible once you go to shoot that arrow, because any torque or tension in any specific manner will start deviating your shot. So if you have a death grip on that thing, when you release it, all that tension that's built up in those strings will cause you to torque the bow, and you're not going to be hitting as accurately as you would like to. From there, that brings me to my third point, which is going to be release adjustment. So I have my release right here. I'll put it up in the camera real quick. But as you guys can see, there's a little set screw in there with a little Allen key that it comes with it. Loosen it up, turn it to make it shorter or longer, depending. But it's important to have a comfortable grip and anchoring point when you go to draw on your bow, that you're consistent each and every time. You want to make sure that you're comfortable, that you're not overreaching too far. So I'll do it from this angle right here. You want to make sure that you're not reaching and barely trying to squeeze the trigger with the tip of your finger. You want a kind of nice, comfortable overlap on it and and release the trigger. Usually when I'm setting on it, I'll set my finger flat on it, and then when I get ready to release the arrow, I'll do a light squeeze like that. So that's going to be my third point, is just make sure you adjust it to where it's the most comfortable. And that brings me to my fourth tip, which is going to be draw length and draw weight. You want to make sure you have the right draw length. So you should have a little bit of a slight bend in your supporting arm when you're holding your bow out. You should have a slight bend in your elbow, and when you draw, your elbow, your drawing arm should have a nice incline to it, to the peak of your elbow each and every time. If your draw length is too long, you'll feel your elbow sit too far down. If your draw length is too short, you'll have your hand covering pretty much your face when you go to release it, and that's just not going to be effective. So if you have the time, get into an archery shop, have them make sure that your adjustments are on point. For the draw weight, I recommend starting lower than what you think you're capable of doing, because again, you're unfamiliar, like I said in the first point of being fatigued easily, you're unfamiliar with the movements, and you don't want to wear yourself out to where you're going to be ineffective at actually, being consistent, being accurate and everything. So set your draw weight a little bit lower, research your bow, find out, hey, how can I increase my draw weight without having to go to an archery shop each and every time? And you should be able to adjust that on your own. The one thing I will recommend not to adjust is going to be the draw length, because that actually requires a bow press to compress the arms on the bow and actually, you know, has a lot of tension under it. So don't touch that. Take that to a shop. Let them do it for you. But make sure you have the right weight and the right draw length, so you can actually practice and improve your skills versus struggling and being fatigued or exhausted or just torquing your bow each and every time that you're shooting an arrow. And last but not least, I extremely recommend this one. This is going to be my 5th tip, and that's to have a spotter and have someone that's familiar with archery equipment, that either shoots themselves, or the person that got you into purchasing your first bow, or, you know, a friend that that you started with around the same time, so you're kind of equal skill levels. Definitely have someone spotting you. Make sure your form is consistent. Make sure your positioning is consistent. Have them check if your anchor point, when you draw back, if your anchor point is consistent. Like for me, my anchor point is the tip of my thumb, sits right on the corner of my cheek, right below my ear. So I know every time that I draw back, as soon as I can feel my thumb touching that point on my cheek, I know I'm at my anchoring point. There's a multitude of other things that you can do to make sure you have a consistent anchoring point. Some people will get a little kisser that you put on your line, so when you draw back, it'll sit. It's like a little rubber disc that'll sit on the string, but when you draw back, it sits right at the corner of your mouth, and that lets you know that every time you draw back, you have that consistent spot that you're anchoring from, to get consistency, to, you know, improve on your accuracy, improve on your skill, and be able to be repetitive in motion and do the same thing over and over again. It's very similar to shooting a gun, in which you want consistency, repetition, muscle memory to keep that same accuracy. So those are going to be my 5 tips for you guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I will be bringing you guys another video next week. That's all I have. Take it easy, guys.